Doing it informal, that's all I was.
We do. Yep, we certainly do. What's that, John?
So I was just looking for introductions, so I don't want
Yeah.
to usurp your
What? No.
protocol.
Why don't we start the meeting and take roll, and then we'll go from there.
Have a call to order of the Bartlett Oktoberfest Commission meeting of September 11th, 2023. Have a roll call, please, Tony.
Jerry Kabasco,
Present.
Kirsten Erickson,
Here.
Robert Perry, Net here, Bruce Suffern,
Here.
Nanette Gutenkopf, Adam Lewinsky, Robert Gorski,
Here.
and Mike Densford.
Here.
Great, thank you. We have a quorum.
Could you give me a handout? Flyer. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any discussion on the previous minutes from August 14th, 2023? Or do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion that we approve the meeting minutes from August 14th, 2023.
Have a second?
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Public comment, probably skip that.
Yeah, we don't have any attendees. I'll, go ahead.
And now we can introduce ourselves before we go into the branding discussion.
Yeah, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves? Most of us know each other, and then I'll say a few comments about the branding, but I'm Scott Strickey, I'm the Assistant Administrator.
And Nan Gutenkopf, with the chamber.
I'm Tony Frayden, the Village Economic Development Coordinator.
Yeah, I'll go last, I guess.
I'm Joey, I'm Management Analyst with the Village.
Bruce Suffern with Banbury Fair.
Jerry Cabasco, Economic Development Commission.
Bob Gorski, Commissioner.
Mike Densford, Commissioner of
Kirsten Erickson, Associate Bank and Co-Chairman of the Board for the Chamber.
Okay, we can start with the branding discussion.
Just a few quick comments. This branding discussion came about at strategic planning, the village board. It has about, there's 26 different tenets of the strategic plan, and this was one of them. There are a lot of communities that do this. I think you saw that in Mr. Harris's presentation. In the towns that we spoke to saw a lot of benefit out of the branding discussion. And you know, if I can just pull back the curtain a little bit, when I first started working here, we had meetings like that, and I kind of thought it was silly, but what we talked about in those meetings 10 years ago was car dealerships, grocery stores in the downtown, and continuing to be safe with our nationally recognized police department. So it is discussions like this, and it's folks like you that help shape the future of the village. And I appreciate you coming here, and I'll kick it over to Mr. Harris.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for doing this. Honor and pleasure to be working here in the village of Bartlett, and grateful to be with you tonight. Matt Robbie, one of my teammates, his son needed him to sign a lease in Valparaiso because he's going to school there. So apparently they don't do electronic stuff in the great state of Indiana. So I'm here solo tonight, but we'll be asking you guys bunch of questions. What we really want to do is listen to you, because we're listening to the board, we're listening to you, we're listening to the entire community. But this really, when we're talking about a story, a brand, and I'm going to call it a brand campaign, and if anybody wants, we could talk about the distinctions between them so that we can, you know, create some make sure that it's clear as we move forward. But you know, economic development is a big part of that, and one of the things we discussed is that could be attraction, but it could also be retention, because what you do now has that, as you just said, 10 years ago, it has that ripple effect. So what happens now will affect, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, potentially 20 years from now. And you've got some things that are in really good shape. You also have some opportunities too, i.e. a new TIF and some new development opportunities. So what we want to do is talk about what economic development means, you know, in your minds, and how a brand campaign can support and advance that. We also want to talk about how to retain residents and attract new residents and keep growing in Bartlett. And a brand campaign can help people because it provides clarity about what Bartlett has been, what Bartlett is, and where Bartlett is going. And if you're making a choice to live in a community, are we going to live in Hoffman Estates, or are we going to live in Elgin, or are we going to live in Naperville, or are we going to live in Bartlett, and why? So retention and attraction, and creating an even stronger sense of community. It was great to go to National Night Out and just see as just one event. I realize there are plenty of others, but what a turnout there was, and how people seem to come out and just have a lot of fun. And I've been to lots of other National Night Out events where people are going, where is everybody, right? So there's something here in the pizza or in the water or the chamber or the village or the history that has helped create a sense of community. That said, one of the things we heard, I think, at the board level, and maybe y'all too, is maybe a little bit of a divide between one side of the road and another side of the road. Also, new people, demographics changing, and how do we welcome people into our community and make them, a part of the community. So these are the types of things we want to explore and ask about and learn about and really find out about what you guys think makes Bartlett terrific, and how we can feed that into creating that brand campaign, that narrative, that story that you're telling, right, versus other people telling your story. And we have worked in communities where people were painting that particular community with a certain brush, and one of the things, if you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to tell that story. So we want to figure out ultimately what is it that story we want to tell, and how do we do it for economic development purposes, for resident retention and attraction, and again, building a stronger sense of community. Now, one of the things that's been discussed, and again, we'll go back to the board on another night too, but we want to make sure we rally around how do we measure success. We've been asked that, and every community comes back and answers that in a slightly different way, but there are soft metrics, i.e., it could be website traffic, could be social media engagement, it could be a variety of email opens, it could be a variety of things that you guys already do or maybe are added to that, and we're going to measure increases, improvements. It could also be hard metrics like population growth, sales tax revenue, EAV, all sorts of things, which, for the record, we always say, never happens in a vacuum, right? No one campaign, makes sure that, either does that alone or doesn't necessarily drive it. But it's part of what you might want to measure over time. And so those are the things that we want to look at and then figure out, what feeds into all of those. We could certainly help with driving social media, web traffic, email opens, all of those things, inquiries. But when it comes to those really hard metrics about moving the community forward, that's part of, and that's why, as you said, this is one element, one leg of the strategic plan. So this is flowing out of and needs to flow back into that overall strategic plan. So I'll pause there. Before I ask you guys questions, any questions of us? Any comments or concerns, anything that you heard there where you're going, huh, what? Okay.
No, I'm happy to hear that you're coming to the public and the business community
Yeah.
and getting feedback.
Yeah.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're going to have to do is get a lot of feedback from you guys, but a feedback from a broad cross-section of the community. Sure. And what I mean, we can send emails and go to events, but a good bit of what we're gonna have to do is just get to people, so, in the community and meet them where they are. And then, listen to what people think makes Bartlett special and different, and make that part of the story. Now, the other piece to this that these guys, staff, know intimately is the whole budget is over a 3-year period. So quite often, we do it for 1 year, and then it goes to a second year or third year. In this case, it's split up. So from a timing perspective, in order to make it all work for the village and for what we do, we're doing this engagement part here in this fall. Then we're going to work on building and creating the campaign in the winter, and then start really rolling it out in the spring. So in terms of, right, which gets close to the end of this fiscal year and into the next fiscal year. That makes sense too? Okay, good. All right. So, just going to start, before I stand up and start, putting this here, I'm going to ask a simple question of each of you. By the way, does everybody live in Bartlett?
No.
Okay, all right, but everybody else does? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's go around the table. What brought you to Bartlett in the first place? Doesn't have to be a long answer, but what was it that drew you to Bartlett in the first place? And by the way, you guys can talk too.
Oh, thanks. I don't live in the town, but I've worked for the town for 18 years. When I first came to look at it, I did have other options of other communities to go to. What attracted me particularly to Bartlett was the downtown area. A lot of the surrounding communities don't have it, and this traditional downtown has had and has the bones for a successful downtown based around the train station. Like you said, not a long answer, but it was the downtown area in particular that attracted me to the village.
So you don't live here, but you work here, Chamber, right?
do.
So
And to be
what
quite
drew
honest-
you?
Well, to be quite honest, I lived in Carroll Stream, and I heard there was a job available here, and I worked in Carroll Stream, and someone suggested that I apply for a job here, and I said, Bartlett's so far. I live probably 2 minutes from the border. The only time I ever went to Bartlett was when I would go to Banbury Fair. But, to classes and whatnot, but, otherwise I knew nothing about Bartlett. And of course, now after I've been here for 8 years working in the town, and I cannot say enough good about this town. I am so impressed with it. The people are so friendly, it is safe. The village, I think, bends over backwards to help, the businesses. The police, anytime we've had to work with the police or encountered the police, they're nice and friendly and helpful. And, I can't say enough good about Bartlett. It's a shame it took me so long to discover them.
So, but you're living in Carroll Stream, but you're that close, but it just wasn't on your radar.
It wasn't, you'd come out and I would just go the same way every day to work, and I never went the other way, and it was like, oh, there's a whole new world here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 10 minutes away from my house. But,
Interesting, okay.
yeah,
Cool.
so
Cool. You've been here 8 years now?
Mhm.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it's just a great town.
Fantastic.
I talk about it all the time. Just, not just because I'm with the chamber, but because it's a great town.
Yeah. Scott, you've been here a while.
Yeah, I've worked for the village for 20-something years. I worked in Village Hall for about 15. Lived here on and off, probably about 25 years. Right now I live in a different community. I imagine I'll be here again at some point. So my parents brought me here. Wasn't here by choice. I was born and raised here. And one of the things I love about this community that I think is pretty rare nowadays is I think your children can ride a bike through the town, and parents can actually feel safe with their kids riding a bike through town. And I'm sad to say, but in 2023 that can be pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of my favorite things about it, thanks to our police department. And kinda like Tony said, I really love the downtown.
Yeah.
And it's exciting, being a resident for so long and now working here and having a hand in it, to see the growth that's occurring. Sometimes it's not quick enough for certain people, but, if you went back 10 years ago and saw Bartlett as a whole compared to what it's now, it's, really endured a lot of growth. I always like to call it mature, methodical growth. It's nice to work here, and I'm very blessed, and I certainly love Bartlett, so I'm excited to see the next 10 years.
Cool. Kirsten?
I grew up in Wisconsin, and my ex-husband, when we were still married, took a job in the city of Chicago, and he used to commute from Kenosha to Chicago. So we knew we wanted to move here, we just didn't know like where. So we were renting an apartment that I still joke about was $1,800 a month in 1998 in Schaumburg. We could not wait to find a house because we were like, holy shit, we're paying $1,800 a month for rent in 1998.
Wow.
So we were like, we know we gotta get out of Schaumburg, we gotta get out of here fast. And so we were building a house in Elgin, and I really wasn't happy with where we had decided to build this house and everything. And we were leaving one day, and we came down 59, and there was a huge billboard for Westridge Bartlett on the other side of town, because I live on the other side of the tracks on West Bartlett, because there is a divide between East Bartlett and West Bartlett. Can't get here on your bicycle. There's a big, big divide. And so I saw the billboard, and my husband was like, we are already building a house. And I was like, but we've got 2 weeks before we can back out. We backed out and built the house in Bartlett.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, we pulled into Westridge, and I was like, okay, this is where we're gonna.
And when was that?
1998.
98, okay. Yeah. All right, okay. Where in Wisconsin?
Racine.
Okay. Cool.
Missed the lake though.
Mhm.
If we had a lake, it'd be perfect. Bartlett would be perfect if we could just get a lake right here.
Bartlett would be perfect with a lake.
Right,
Yeah.
the lighthouse, I missed
Let's
it,
put
the
a lake on the
lighthouse.
branding logo.
Yeah.
We're
I
looking
missed
for a
the
lake.
lighthouse goes through my bedroom.
That's
window.
funny.
Like, oh, man.
That's funny. Yeah. We should just for fun draw a logo with a lake and a lighthouse or something and just present it to the board and just to see what they say. I don't make it a habit of getting fired right away. So.
It's kind of like an story. I grew up in Carroll Stream. After I got married, my wife and I bought a house in Carroll Stream. The market crashed right after we got married, and we thought, let's go buy a house, super cheap. I said Bartlett. My wife's like, where's that? She drove through it every day. She had no idea. Yeah, and kind of a similar thing, I used to own a business in Naperville, and people would say, you live in Bartlett, that's a far drive. They always thought Bartlett was Barrington.
Ah, sure.
And I would tell them, I love this town. Now, it doesn't help with what we were trying to accomplish here, it's growing the economy, but I always liked it because it's a sleepy town that no one drives through. You go down 59, and you never realize you drive through Bartlett. That's maybe something that we can change as a group, that people notice us more. And as a kid, I always could not remember Carroll Streams, like, come town. We always said the rich kids lived here. And now that I live here, it's an awesome community. I'm very involved. I coach sports. I assume I'm probably the only one with young children on the committee, other than Adam. I know Adam has some younger children. One thing I hear a lot about the other families when they're getting ready to get into houses, where can I find housing? They all
And they're from where?
they're here.
Okay.
Oh yeah, people that are looking to upgrade, they all want to stay here. They don't want. The joke in our house is when we decide to move, what state is it? Because I won't leave Bartlett, be to another state.
Put that on our branding folder. That's perfect.
Yeah, I mean it really is.
I thought we were gonna put a lake on there. No. Okay. So what?
It's gonna be real
What do you think?
Picture of Mike at the lake
It's-
with that quote.
I mean, it's cheesy, but I love this town. I mean, it's awesome.
And go a little deeper. What is it about
It's
this town
Mayberry,
here?
man. It's Mayberry. I mean, we all laugh, but it is. We all, like, I'm the town barber. I cut hair here. I know what's going on. I didn't even realize you didn't live in town, Tony. I see you walking up and down Bartlett Road. I thought you lived over, like, by Jervy.
I walk every day
Yeah,
through the town.
like, I see
Mhm.
all these people throughout the day.
Mhm.
I coach football, I coach wrestling, I coach baseball. I mean, I was at O'Hare's for the Bears game. But hearing the kind of talk about, oh, there's a Venezuelan restaurant opening. Oh, boss has pizza oven, what's he putting in there? It's so tight knit that not 7 degrees of separation, maybe 2, something like that.
Or Kevin Bacon's hometown.
Yeah. I mean, it really is a very, very small community, but it's a very big town as far as
Right,
population.
right.
And there is kind of a joy. My friend that we paint the football field, we were talking last night, he lives on, I guess that's Westwood. I don't know the little community names, but he's off 25 in West Bartlett there. And he's like, oh, yeah, the people over there, they kind of feel left out.
Mhm. Very much.
Where are they?
1,000%.
Anything
Westridge.
west of
Yep,
59.
yep.
pretty
Once
much.
you cross the railroad tracks, there's 3 rather large subdivisions there. There's Westridge, there's Huron Landing, and I can't remember the name of the other one. But we are very disconnected. Like, we went to ride our bikes to Smoke and Irons Festival, and instead of coming down West Bartlett Road, which is a straight shot, which you can't do, we had to take our bicycles through the Tri-County Park, out on Stearns, and into Bartlett. So, because there's just no way to get
You
here
literally
and
no
there.
connectivity.
Right.
Okay.
I
Right.
joke that it's a suburb of South Elgin.
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Your story. What brought you here?
I moved down here in 1991.
Mhm.
About 52 years that I've lived down here. But my wife is from the city. I moved to the city when I was in high school, and when we came back out to the suburbs, we were kind of in the Villa Park area. So we had a townhouse, and we're looking to, families start to grow a little bit. We're looking for an actual single-family home. So we were looking in Glen Ellen, Wheaton area, and we just couldn't afford it.
Mhm.
So finally, my agent says one time, well, here, let me show you this house. So we go out to Apple Orchard subdivision, and I got almost a half an acre and much more house for the money. And so that's what sold us on coming out here, was just the fact that we can afford to be out here as opposed to for us as a young family, to be in a Wheaton or a Glen Ellen at any
Mhm.
time. So that's what got us out here. Interestingly enough, as our kids started to get into the school system, and this isn't the norm, I don't think what you're gonna hear, but our kids all qualified for the gifted program through U46.
Mhm.
So that was our keeper. The fact that I could have all of my kids go through the gifted program, then I didn't have as much concerns about the school system
Mhm.
as a lot of other folks
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
Because I can remember my block when our kids first, were starting to get into that level, because there was for sale signs up and down the block.
Okay.
And everybody says, well, we're going to St. Charles, they just built St. Charles North, yada, yada, not better. That's what they did.
Right.
So anyway, but that, yeah.
And is
so
it the same way now? Just a check on the schools? Is it?
I don't know.
I only had dogs, and I'm glad that I only had dogs, because I don't know if I would send my children to
There's-
46.
It's the second largest school
Yeah.
district in
Yeah.
Illinois.
Mhm.
I think that gives you the
They're,
chance.
they,
Yeah.
when you look at your tax bill, it's by far the largest,
Piece of your tax bill.
yeah. But if you look at Bartlett schools, they're actually a lot of them are highly rated.
Mhm.
One of our grade schools was actually one of the top rated grade schools in the state not long ago, and that was Prairie View. But I think there's probably some folks I think there's a perception out there.
Right.
You know,
Definitely previous stigma, because when my parents moved to Carroll Stream, they moved a block over, because that part of Carroll Stream is U46, and you're not going to Stream.
Okay.
And it carries over too, because like, kids in my subdivision don't get to go to Bartlett High School. They have to go to South Elgin High School,
Right.
even though they live in Bartlett, so.
Right.
I mean, and I'm not a good judge of the school district, because even if I did have kids, they probably would have gone to private school anyways, but, so
I'd like this.
that's odd.
Yeah,
I'd like this so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with the district, you know.
But it's
you're
big,
talking
so that's also,
You're talking about that, but even the Woodland Hills kids who live 3 blocks from Bartlett High School have to go to South Elgin, just
Wow.
because of their lines.
Okay.
And
It's
so.
changing very soon.
Well, hopefully it does, but I just, yeah, I mean, we fought that battle the whole time, but
Yeah.
the fact that our kids got to go to the gifted program
Right.
changed all that for us.
Right.
So that's why we stayed.
Bartlett High School was built in, I believe, 1998.
Mhm.
So when I was going to high school, there was no Bartlett High till, or no, I think my freshman year was the first year was open or something like that. So for a while, there was no, kids went to either Elgin
Oh my God.
or Larkin, I believe, at that time. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's fairly new, doesn't
Yeah.
seem new, but 20 years is still,
that's new.
it's relatively.
Yeah,
and it's amazing, I mean, when you go past, it's very, like the athletic fields and everything are very attractive. I mean, they have a really nice campus. I think it's just amazing when you look at those athletic fields and everything for a high school.
Yeah.
Bartlett,
I mean,
yeah. I think-
my battles
You
were
know, I like
many
this.
years ago, so
You like
I'm
South Elgin better?
over that. Yeah, I mean, my kids are grown
Yeah.
and gone now and
Right.
everything else, so.
so what keeps you here now?
It's a great question. Mostly because, all right, so my kids aren't that far from us right now, and so my wife wants to be wherever the grandkids are gonna be, right? That's
Mhm.
the main thing. I would leave the state. Period.
Yeah, I would just
I
leave
would
the
just
state.
leave the state. I would not say, oh, let's go to blank, right? Me personally, I would, where can we go?
Right, okay.
But-
And by the way, are you guys making a lot of people will say that and say, I need to get out of Illinois. I don't sense that's what you're just saying, if I were to
Well, if I were
leave,
to move
Yeah.
I would,
At all, my wife didn't even want to move to, Harris Landing. There was a big
Yeah.
house for sale. She's like, she wanted to stay on this side of the tracks, you know?
Yeah.
But we live right by the libraries.
right.
over
But you
there.
guys aren't making an anti-Illinois comment is what I'm getting at, are you? Or are you?
I am.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
could.
Right.
I haven't
Okay.
yet, so.
Right.
So the other thing too is that I coached a lot of sports, and we've actually talked about this with some friends. We took them to dinner at the Tapas restaurant, and you know we walked in. My wife and I walked into the Tapas restaurant, and our friends are from Elgin, and immediately my wife sees someone she knows, and then I see somebody else I know, and our friends are like, you know everybody in this town because of all my coaching and all of my, you know, I mean I've done quite a bit of being involved in so many things around the town, being involved in the church, being involved in
Mhm.
coaching, and so yes, I mean I 2 degrees of separation, I'm pretty much like spot on.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, you know, that's right.
Sidebar might seem random. Do you guys do block parties here? Is there a block party culture? Okay.
Yeah, they did the, National Night Out.
Yeah, would we have 20 or something, I think, about, right?
Yeah, I think there was a little over 20.
Yeah.
Block parties?
Yeah, just for National Night Out, but they do them all summer long.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay, okay, cool. Jerry?
Well, I was born and raised in Chicago, and after serving over in Germany, I got discharged from the Army, and about a year after that, I got married. I lived in Stone Park for about 2 or 3 years.
Hmm.
Worked in Franklin Park, and one
Mhm.
day, looked in the real estate section of the Sun-Times and saw this ad for Bartlett, building new homes in Bartlett. So that was in 1971, I think. And we moved out here. We came out and liked what we saw. And in '72, we bought a house over by the church in the Cook County side over at the Quadro Homes. And we stayed there for 5 years until Brook Farm opened up, and then we bought a house over there on the DuPage County side.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been there ever since.
Okay. And what was it that, when you saw that ad, what made you say Bartlett?
Because of the train, it had access. I could take it from here right into Franklin Park and walk to my job.
Okay. What was your job?
Hmm?
What did you do?
I worked in engineering, product development,
Okay.
new product design.
Okay.
And that was a selling point. Plus the price was right, it was fairly cheap. I was able to get a GI loan to back me up on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. So yeah, new construction,
yeah,
good home, good quality home, inexpensive. Could get on the train to go to Franklin Park. Okay.
Yeah.
What kept you here?
what kept me here?
Mm-hmm.
I just like the community. I like everything about it.
Mhm.
It's small, a lot smaller than now. I mean, when I moved here, it was under 5,000 people.
5?
Under 5,000.
Yeah. So 40 now?
42.
42. Yeah.
There's
Sorry.
There's about 4,900, 45.
Didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, when I moved
42.
It was pretty small in '72. There wasn't
Yeah.
much going on.
Yeah.
All you had downtown was the Abcon Corridor and the Bartlett Tap.
Mm-hmm.
And the village grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Used to go shop there
Mhm.
in town.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty small,
Uh-huh.
friendly.
Okay.
Everybody was friendly, and
Except for Bruce.
Except for Bruce. So yeah, Bruce. How did you get here?
We've known Bruce a long time. He's a good guy.
Mhm. What brought you here?
So, my wife and I, my first job was in Arlington Heights,
Mhm.
and so I'm from the south side of Chicago.
Mhm.
And so after graduating, they just opened up the apartments on Lake Street. They were brand new, Lakewood or whatever it's called, Bartlett Lakes. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
They were brand new, and they let you have dogs. And so we had 2 dogs, and so that's how I never heard of Bartlett, didn't know anything about Bartlett, but it was those apartments. Then we happened to stumble upon downtown Bartlett,
Mm-hmm.
and that was that.
And yeah, you were telling me your story of your wife being sales manager, her an epidemiologist, and then you decided to both get out and
Well,
open this.
Right. Again, a big part of the story was our marital breakdown
Hmm.
that caused us to change the direction of our life
Mhm.
away from money.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had $15,000 saved up and decided to give it a shot. And I thought once the 15,000 was exhausted, I'd go back to work in the corporate world and have demonstrated a willingness to change
Mm.
my priority
Mm-hmm.
to her.
Mm-hmm.
And turned out I loved it.
Hmm.
I'm a marketing guy, so marketing to women is wonderful because
Mhm.
they respond to how you present it, how you price it,
Mm-hmm.
what you have,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to go back.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
And so we rented the upstairs of the bar, Lucky Jack's Bar, which is where Moore Brewing is right now. That's how we started. It was a condemned apartment.
Really?
And the owner gave us the keys, and Orlo Benson let us bring it up to code. And then 2 years later, we rented the basement of that same bar.
Hmm.
So we were upstairs and basement of the bar. And then they sold the building to the first Illinois lottery winner,
Hmm.
who told us that when our lease was up, we had to move.
Mhm.
And so really didn't want to go anywhere else other than Bartlett. I didn't want to go anywhere else except downtown Bartlett, to
Mhm.
be honest with you. And so there was this house across the street from the bar that was pretty beat up, tough shape, with an $8,000 property tax bill
Hmm.
that nobody wanted. Except me, my wife.
And 40 years later, right?
Well, we bought that in '87.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there was 4 years in the
Okay.
bar building
Okay, okay,
before we bought the property.
okay. Cool. Cool. Where do you live?
I live in a town called Davis Junction.
Okay. But what brought you here to
Yeah.
Bartlett, to work in Bartlett?
Scott,
Yeah. So I was in the NIU MPA program,
Hmm.
and NIU set us up with, 4 or 5 different interviews, drove to all these different towns, and I came to Bartlett one day and interviewed with Scott and our administrator Paula, and just kind of, had a few different offers. Had an offer in DeKalb where I was going to school already, but my wife was working out here in Hoffman Estates, so we decided, and really enjoyed the small town feel that Bartlett had.
Mhm.
And now 6 years later, I was fortunate enough to stay full time, and my wife and I recently moved back to our hometown, but still make the choice to drive over an hour every day just because of the community Bartlett is, and really.
Is it 20, 72? Where?
Yep, 72 and
72.
251.
Yeah, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, God, oh, yeah. You're sort of southeast of Rockford.
Yeah, you blink and
Yeah,
you
no,
miss it.
I lived in Rockford for a time, and I knew Davis Junction somehow, so, yeah, right. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a haul.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, good.
Yeah, choose,
And so Scott brought you here, and Tony keeps you here?
Yep.
Is that? Huh?
We like Joey.
What about you?
Oh, and Bob.
You live, what brought you to Bartlett?
I initially actually lived in Bartlett off of Taylor in the apartment buildings there.
Mhm.
And once I got hired, I wanted a house and bought a house in St. Charles. I've been with this apartment for almost 19 years.
Mhm.
I would agree with pretty much everything everybody is saying, with the definite, not exception, but the acceptance of if I leave, I'm leaving Illinois. So
Mhm.
when I retire, I'm actually going to leave Illinois.
Right.
There's not positives to say about the state.
Right.
Illinois, though, Bartlett itself, it definitely has the very small town feel,
Uh-huh.
very close-knit community. I was not in charge of it, I know this year, but I was in charge of National Night Out for many, many years. And every year between the block parties and the events and the family fun night, the pool parties and stuff like that, all the feedback we've always gotten has always been that they felt like we were, everybody within the village as well as the police department were very easy to talk to at the
Mhm.
events as well as outside the events. So just because we were in uniform didn't scare the kids. Now, that being said, I literally just got told that, because I was a DARE officer for
Mhm.
many, many years. I actually had a couple kids approach and they're like, "You're super intimidating." But that's where I think once they get to know us, it's the uniform that intimidates them. But then once they get to know us and they get to know the officers and they get to know the fire department, they get to know the people in their suits and stuff like that, and a different level. The community events, I think, they're the big thing for us. We're nationally recognized for National Night Out, but
Yeah.
it's because of
Yeah.
the fact that we know how to pull not just our community in, but all the other people from other communities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a big
And we've
crowd.
had multiple agencies from other departments asked to come to our national out, and keep asking us, how do you get so many people to come when you don't serve alcohol? I'm like,
As the
never-
Oktoberfest committee, we're like, yeah, how does that
Yeah,
happen?
and we have never, ever, and we never, ever will, because that's not what that event is for. It's
Right.
about community safety and orientation and
Yeah.
just helping people feel included and all-inclusive. So we have a dog walker watch to include, it's like neighborhood watch for dog walkers. So
Yeah.
all these different things that we try to do, it's solely because we want the people in our town to feel safe and comfortable, but to pull those other outside villages in with us. So we've offered up all of our information on our events to them.
The Christmas
Because we want them to feel that way.
The what?
The Christmas event, like.
The Christmas event, we
It
had a
feels like you're
Halloween
in a Hallmark
drive-through,
movie.
I mean,
I mean,
we were doing book reading
yeah.
during COVID, we were going on Zoom, we changed it up every chance we got.
In a good way.
It's very Hallmark.
Yeah.
It's Hallmark.
And you're
It's like
engaged
Hallmark.
with the Halloween parade, your
Yep.
people, are police officers on the corners, with all the kids.
I mean, we do food drives, we do, school supply drives, we do everything. We do the socks, we get involved with collecting socks during October, and we do everything possible to make our people feel included.
Yeah.
And plus, I think too, because the police department is CALIA certified, I think that's a big thing too. You know, to have one of the few police departments that has that accreditation.
What is it?
So it's a special thing, and how many communities, it's like really like 13 or something in Illinois?
We
Police
honestly
departments are
don't
doing it.
really pay attention, we don't, yeah, that's not my piece.
Yeah.
I'll
So
send-
it's-
I'll
it's
send
for
you guys.
excellence, it's for like excellence
Oh,
in
okay.
policing and
Yeah.
stuff.
So if we, right now, if I were sitting with a bunch of folks in, you know, Hanover Park, South Elgin, Carroll Stream, I don't know, pick another close by community,
Streetwood.
Streamwood, do you think we'd be having the same conversation? Would they be saying the same things? Yeah.
No, and I think their, criminal stats are higher than ours.
Okay.
Because of the fact that, we always joke, it's one of the ongoing jokes that, yeah, we do have crime here, but it seems like people don't live here. They come from outside because they know that people value their things, they value their community, they value their people, and that's what people wanna kind of infiltrate a little bit, which is kind of bizarre to me, cause it's, we'll catch people and they live in Elgin, they live in Streamwood, they live in Hanover Park, they live in Chicago. And we're like, why are you coming here? They're like, well, you've got Lake Street, you've got 59, easy way and easy way out, and we're trying to find any way possible
Yeah.
to make easy money without having to work for it.
Yeah.
And that's why we always try to encourage people, you know, locking your car doors. It's not because, you know, you shouldn't trust your neighbor, it's that you're not in a bubble.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people forget that. We don't live in a bubble. And as
Oh,
times have
interesting.
changed, people change and criminal activity changes, but ours is still relatively pretty good considered.
So are there other communities that are, you know, within 20 or 30 miles where we might be having, I mean, can you think of it? I mean, in other words, does St. Charles come to mind,
Oh,
or
I'm sure.
Geneva?
Yeah, it would be those Fox River communities.
Okay.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glen Ellen,
Glen
we.
Glen
Yeah.
Ellen, Wheaton, that's where I was going. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have much larger downtowns too,
Right.
They do.
more variety. It's
Well, I think the one bad thing about the train is, it's great, is that it's not a pickup and drop off at the same location. That was a huge miss. Everybody says it. If you're getting you do that kiss and ride, you get dropped off, you park over here because it's a pickup here to drop off there.
Oh.
So a lot of people,
Okay.
I'll be honest, a lot of people will avoid doing that because they'll go park in Hanover Park despite the fact that they know it's possible their car might get burglarized. But because they can get picked up and dropped off at the same spot, or they can leave their car and they know they can.
Yeah,
go
that's
right
not
back
far,
up.
I mean, to get over there.
No, but I always look at it from handicap elderly kind of perspective.
Yeah.
It kind of was a miss, and a lot of us have said that. I'm like, wow, that was unfortunate, but I know it wasn't up to us to decide that either.
That's a
It
long
was-
story.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
We don't need to rehash it.
Yes, no, I'm not trying to
No, I
rehash
know.
it, yes,
So
I'm
bad.
just saying that has always been a discussion.
Okay. So the communities I rattled off the first bunch, this has that small town, safe hometown, kids ride your bike across town, and parents are, we call them free range kids now, right? and you don't find it many places. But if we went a little farther to Glen Ellen, Wheaton, St. Charles, Geneva, they might express that sort of feeling. They're also just, I mean, we'll look at the numbers, but where does Bartlett rank in terms of income and affluence, versus St. Charles and Geneva, and Glen Ellen and Wheaton?
It might be slightly lower, not dramatically lower
Yeah.
than those other communities, but it's higher than a lot of these communities that
Around.
were mentioned
Yes.
tonight, like Carroll Stream and
Yeah.
neighboring communities like Streamwood and Hanover Park. It's much higher
Yeah.
than all the ones surrounding.
Right.
the
That Carroll
village.
Stream doesn't have what Bartlett has, correct? I mean,
There's some stuff at the town center. I mean, the town center does
And
a
like
lot
what
of
do you mean,
concerts.
do they have?
no, just that feel that you guys do, because it's 42,000 people now. When you came here, it was
Carroll
5.
Stream is that too.
No, but it still feels small, is what you're saying. Still feels like a tightly knit community, Bartlett.
I think, as someone that grew up in Carroll Stream, I think the big difference is Bartlett got lucky with the way it's laid out. Like I said about driving through town, there were so many different subdivisions in Bartlett that wasn't Carroll Stream. There wasn't like a central area up until we look at City Center and
No.
whatever you call it. I
There's-
mean, even
there
now
isn't.
it's still.
Right.
There is no downtown,
It's
there
still,
is
Yeah,
no,
just town
it's
center.
still not.
it doesn't have a lot of business, period.
Which comes back to what you guys said, is the downtown here is a draw. Yeah.
I've heard for 20 years, sometimes White Camp, St. Charles has this, Geneva has this, I've heard that.
Right.
Like,
They're laid out too.
yeah, on water and stuff like that. One of the big things is the development of our downtown recently, of the streets of Bartlett, and 120 Live, and La Petite, and more brewing. A lot of folks will say, St. Charles and Geneva, when you go to St. Charles and Geneva, you have to park and walk. And that's one of the problems we're having with our downtown right now, is people talking about, well, where do you park? We've got 750 metro spots within a 5-minute walk time to any downtown business there is. But folks have a problem with that. And sometimes it's the same folks that say, well, what about St. Charles and Geneva? Like, when you go there, you gotta search for parking. You gotta drive around and around on a Saturday night. So that's kind of one of the things that we're dealing with in the downtown now, that we're growing, and there's a lot more options to dine and entertain
Right,
yourself.
right. Right, okay, all right. So, let's stay there, sort of, just rattle off a couple of things that you think are relatively new, that are just neat stories to tell, or help tell the story, or help draw people to Bartlett. So you mentioned more brewing, for example, but throw out some others. And they might be new or not.
Businesses, you're
Yeah,
talking
just
about business?
businesses or attractions or events.
Well, there's a hell of an Oktoberfest in this town.
I hear they don't serve alcohol at this Oktoberfest.
No, they serve lots of alcohol.
Yeah,
I'd say that it's just the festivals in general.
yeah.
Okay.
As someone that talks to 20, well, just myself, I mean, I have like 60 people coming to this every day, walking at the barber shop, and they joke about, well, what's Bartlett gonna make another festival? Like they enjoy them, and like it's cool how many. I mean, you almost go once a month or something. Maybe not so much December to April, 'cause it's digging out of snow at that time. But once it gets nice out, there seems to be something going on at least once a month.
Okay.
Not always huge, but you got stuff in Bayberry Fair going on. People
Mhm.
talk about it.
Well, a cool example that's not a business is, and Bartlett is known for its church community.
Mm-hmm.
So the Village Church of Bartlett is one of the more involved communities, and they have extravaganza where they give away 75,000 eggs.
Over here at the park?
At Bartlett Park.
I think that was the night that we interviewed for this with y'all, and I went through, or, yeah, or maybe it was the week before, and I drove into town just to, start getting a better feel for it, and I saw that extravaganza, and there was a ton of people there.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, parking, yes, but just,
Yes.
But it's
Yeah,
community,
yeah.
it's a community event, no money. We have a Halloween parade, and I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of children and families come in the parade during the morning in the downtown and trick or treat and go to businesses and play games. It's definitely got a small town feel, and you got the police department right there interacting with them. You got the business people interacting with the community.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of these events that continue on. Our 4th of July parade, I was telling Scott, my grandchildren, they can't wait for the next one, so we continue to have these great traditions.
And everything.
Yeah.
That's a great.
The fire department's turkey
Turkey
raffle
Yeah.
night. So there are still a lot of the older organizations, the Lions clubs that are still doing lots of work to help the community.
Mhm.
And the Raiders is a great representation of our community.
That's football, right?
Yeah. We have some black guys, but it's definitely, it's what makes me love this town. I mean, during, just not to get off topic, when COVID was going on and I had to shut my business and neighborhood down for months, I had people putting money in my mailbox, like we were all helping each other. I mean, and that's when everything was shut down. We went to pick up food from Delicious when we were still in the plaza here. And April was ghost town. This place was hustling. And my wife's like, why don't you just move in here? And sell that place and come here. And it's, you'll hear it from us probably this entire meeting. It's such a small town that it supports one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when COVID hit, the village stepped in really fast and did the signs and everything was opening back up that, now open. There was a lot of railing about Bartlett to Go page and taking your food to go and how you could get, your different food and obviously supporting the restaurants by buying bottles of wine and everything as well, because that was a big profit maker. So I think there was a lot done during that time to really kind of, yeah, that was a really good.
I want to do a time check. How late can we go? I should look at Jerry. You're the chair.
Maybe like 8:30 would be a good time to stop.
Is that cool? Okay, good. Okay, so let's shift to maybe more of the EDC stuff that you guys have done. Over the last, say, 5 years or so, what have you guys been working on and what's been successful? Just name a couple of things that have been accomplishments of the EDC.
We created a grant program. I guess that's about 5 years old now. 2018, I think, was the first year for these beta grants that help existing businesses upgrade and expand, and it helps to attract some new businesses also. I think maybe one of the nights you were here, we probably had a couple of them. I think with the 2 that came before the EDC last month, I think we're up to about 24 of them. I could talk all night about what's going on at the EDC. Been doing this a long time, but the vacancy rate we've talked about a few times. It's quite a bit lower than it was years ago. We've utilized some of these grants, sales tax rebates, Cook County property tax incentives. We look at kind of any way possible we can to fill all the spaces in town and to attract development to the town. So I think the EDC has a lot to do with that. We talk about it every meeting. We've had a lot of
I always
businesses
hear-
come through
I
here.
lived in Bartlett before that business park started.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just, like, I can remember driving west on Stearns, and you did not see past 59, there was nothing there but trees. Now I'm seeing the Home Depot, and then the white building that's on the right side, I don't know, Fastenal or whoever
Yeah.
you know, I mean, like,
Yeah.
where did that thing come from?
I-
But, I mean, that whole business part wasn't there when I got here, in 91.
Yeah.
There was hardly anything west of 59 when I.
Yeah, we
TIF
have one of the
TIF
most,
district.
yeah, we have one of the most successful TIFs in the state. And it is Brewster Creek Business Park,
Right.
Commissioner Gorski's talking about. We've had, like over 6 million square feet of construction there. Over, 75 businesses, 38 buildings. I mean, some behemoths.
Oh, yeah.
So Bartlett's gone, like Jerry was talking about, and Bruce and people who've been here a long time, kind of a sleepy little town, but have like really an industrial powerhouse on the west side of town here. Some of the biggest food companies in Chicago, in the whole Chicago market, are just a few miles from here. 4 of them. Rana, Greco,
Yeah, it's an
Yeah, fresh
impressive
produce.
roster over there.
cheese merchants.
I was impressed with the tours, that there are some international companies.
Yeah, there's
I think
Chinese
this is
companies
the-
out there.
The headquarters for
German,
national.
yeah, a lot of German companies, a lot of German manufacturers, aerospace, high tech. It's an interesting area.
And
yeah.
what is it that you think brought them to Bartlett?
I mean, at first, a lot of them were, yeah, I could talk about this all night. Part of the business park is in Cook County, but it started off in DuPage County, the first 30 or so buildings. And they were a lot of companies that outgrew older, dated, obsolete facilities in some of the inner ring industrial areas. I won't name towns, but the ones kind of just circling around O'Hare Airport.
Yeah, the Franklin Parks or
Franklin
the
Park,
Bensonvilles or.
Bensonville,
Yeah.
Des Plaines,
Yep.
you got it.
Yeah. You didn't name
And
it.
they would come here and do a build to suit. Let's
Yeah.
say they outgrew a 100,000 square foot facility, now they want a 200,000. Build it exactly to their own specifications. The business park has high development standards, so the buildings, they're clean, they're nice, they look similar, they're all well built. The village spent over $100 million in TIF money out there for the infrastructure.
Mhm.
So it's not just a concrete jungle, it's a lot of landscaping and natural areas and detention areas, and it's, I've spent thousands of hours working on it, and I mean, built up a business park from scratch, from a depleted gravel quarry. Took 23 years. And the TIF's
Wow.
ending this year.
Good planning.
Yeah.
Good execution of the plan.
Good development partners.
Good location.
Yeah.
In terms of not being intrusive to residents.
Right, yeah, it blends nicely, it really does.
Access to I-90.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what are some of the other things that you guys have, focused on or done, again, over the last 5 years? And then, if you just want to go there, what are you locked on right now? What are the things that, as an EDC, you guys want to accomplish over the next 3 or 5 years?
Well, we're always focusing on downtown area, trying to make sure it's vibrant, viable, trying to figure out ways to get more people to come down.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'll say one thing, is it's more brewery opened up. I see a lot of people I never saw before at the other restaurants and pubs.
Oh, so opening one more adds more people to the other places. There, that's
It's definite.
very, yeah.
I agree.
I see a lot of people in there, especially on the weekends with their small kids. They bring the family who comes in. You don't see that too much at O'Hara's or Pasta Mia, stuff like that. A whole new clientele that I never saw before at the other places.
All these kind of bring so many people in.
Say again?
Aldi.
Aldi, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's.
think more breweries, since it's got other locations, people are really aware of what it is. And I think it's bringing people from out of the area into town too. We used to focus on that in the past, how to attract more people into town from surrounding area. And I think more breweries are doing some of that now.
Okay, all right,
People are familiar with it.
okay.
A lot of the parents who have, kids that are 21, 22, 23, they talked about how their kids used to always go to St. Charles to go out. Now it's really they're just coming in downtown Bartlett and staying in downtown Bartlett. And that was just like a nighttime demographic that wasn't really coming here. They were going to other towns.
When I was in my early 20s, I always went somewhere else. Now, if I was in my early 20s, I'd be staying in Bartlett. Also, Bartlett really wasn't a place years ago where you'd go on a date or you'd spend an evening. Now you can spend an evening and go on a date. It was always kind of, you could go and get a nice meal, but you wouldn't necessarily spend an evening here. And now I feel like the work that everybody's done, I feel like that's happening.
And where are those places where people would go?
I had to laugh because my son lives in Nashville, and right about the time that shortly after 120 Live opened, he said, "So I hear you've got a new place there in Bartlett that's pretty cool." I said, "How did you hear about that in Nashville?" He said, "Oh, my friends are talking about it." I just thought it was kind of interesting that I heard about it in Nashville about this restaurant that everybody was liking.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone looks like Bartlett, they get Bartlett, Tennessee, that's all they
We
can
do. Yes,
Well, there is that.
it's not in Tennessee.
Yeah, we're very familiar with that.
So 120 Live, more brewing, what else? Where else?
Oh, even like my daughter, she lives in the city now, but she had her high school friend come back, and so they said, "Hey, let's walk downtown." So first, they went to 120. They went to the bowling alley, and I don't know if they did something else beyond that. But I mean, it will probably cherry on top is probably where they landed, knowing my daughter. But anyway, yeah, they just walked to and from, between the bowling alley and the ice cream store and the 120. So that's,
And your daughter's living downtown, so walking is something that she's used to, right?
Yes.
And her friend lives where?
Denver.
Okay, so
It's a
probably
high school friend came back.
same
and
thing,
said,
walking,
"Hey,
right?
Let's
Okay.
go downtown and let's, because otherwise they would have gone to St. Charles like it was when
Okay.
my son was at that
Okay,
age.
all right. Okay. All right, so downtown is a focus for you guys? Bringing in more businesses, giving them grants, okay? What about the new TIF? What have you guys talked about from the perspective of the new TIF?
We haven't spoken too much with these folks about it yet, only because it was literally just approved recently by the village board.
Okay.
So, but I imagine as time goes on, we'll be getting into them.
Okay. What kind of opportunity does that bring for Bartlett, the new TIF area?
Well, there's kind of a mishmash of properties, if you will, along some portions of Lake Street. And when we talk about all these things that the village has succeeded in, like the projects downtown and the business park, on our northern edge of town, along Lake Street, so far it's been somewhat of a missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
There's undeveloped land, there's vacant buildings there's dilapidated buildings that are currently in use. It's one of the busiest traveled corridors. Like a few other people said, sometimes you don't know what town you're driving through, and people ask me, is this thing in Bartlett, is that thing in Bartlett? No, this one's not, this one is. We're trying, the motivation behind the TIF in general is to redevelop an area and put it to higher and better use.
Mm-hmm.
But we want it generally to be a mix of uses, up to code, some new buildings, some new opportunities for residential, commercial, and recreational. I think, we're not deciding the TIF plan now, we have consultants who are gonna guide us through that. But generally to bring it up to look like the rest of Bartlett
Yeah.
is starting to look.
It was very tired. It's
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
tired. We haven't had a new apartment. We've been working with a developer, talking about it for years, to build a new apartment building in our downtown. We haven't had a new apartment building built in Bartlett for over 40 years. And that opportunity certainly exists along Lake Street, and of course, commercial locations. There's stuff like Dunkin' Donuts over there, and strip centers, and some national chains in some other towns. There's no reason we couldn't make that area look a lot better, more vibrant.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. And apartment buildings give you opportunities to bring new people into town, but also for people to downsize, I suppose, right? Do you need to have a mix of, I think that's one of the things I've always heard, for example, at Hanover Park, is it's sort of like, you got one type of housing, and that's about it. So you can't really move up or down depending on your stage in life or your income or whatever. You guys seem to have a lot of single-family houses, had a fair number of apartments, like you said, 40, 50 years ago.
Mhm.
But now it's time to have more of that product. Is that
Yeah,
fair to say?
Right. I don't have the statistics in my head, but it is overwhelmingly single-family
Yeah.
residential, like really high, like 70-something%. And the thought behind apartments, like you said, it is for people who would be downsizing, but also for young people, kind of like Scott and some other people alluded to. If you're just coming out of college, you're not able to purchase a single-family home or rent one of these townhomes or whatever the case may be, to have another living option, a nice living option,
Mhm.
a nice and safe, clean, new living option
Mhm.
in town.
Mhm.
So we think there's a demand for it, and our apartment occupancy rate in Bartlett is 100%.
Right.
And it's been for years.
Yeah. Right.
If you can find one, it's gonna be rented.
When will the TIF plan be done?
Well, it's early on in this, so I just looked at the schedule today, so it would be early next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. But because I do want to touch on this again, because I forget who said it. It might have been with y'all, or it might have been at the village board. But hey, and you alluded to it earlier, right? Your vacancy rate is really low on the commercial, on the business side. So what do we need a campaign for, right? Well, their retention was the answer that was raised, but also there is opportunity here with this new TIF for development, and it's a
Right.
mix of uses, and that could
Yeah.
that plan's going to be done as early next year, so
Mhm.
that development is coming
Right.
along Lake Street.
Right, and we have another big development site I should mention right now, that, the biggest undeveloped site in the town at the northwest corner of 59 and West Bartlett Road, Grasslands, right?
Yeah.
It's called it's a new subdivision, and that has a commercial, portion of land right on the corner of 59 and West Bartlett, so
Mhm.
that's one of our big, high-profile, commercial development sites that we're looking to bring
Okay.
something to.
Right.
And that's attracting a demographic. I know a couple of people who are already moving into there because they have the ranch duplexes, so they wanna get out of their two-story house and they wanna just be in that duplex ranch, so.
They started one.
Yeah, I heard that. Jimmy was like, oh,
Okay. So, and what more would you like to see? Pun was not intended. Downtown. What more would you like to see downtown?
I've talked about this actually with Kevin Wallace at one point. If we were able to build a parking structure, perhaps where that water tower is, then take this land right over here. And so you have, first of all, the bank with that drive-through takes up a whole city block. Like, just condemn that thing, give them something else.
Wait, is that your bank?
Just a drive-through, not my main
That's,
building,
Kristen's
all right?
That's why I looked at
Should
you.
we separate them?
Wait,
But-
I will let you know, we are number 19 in all the Associated Bank branches, so there you go.
I
that main branch I
It,
can go
it
for.
just takes so much space downtown that if that block plus the parking lot that's next to that on the other side, if that could all be developed into, so one of the things that I mentioned is, like what you see in St. Charles, for example, is the restaurants are a U shape on the perimeter with a brick kind of walkway in the middle, and they have live bands in the summer, and they have outdoor seating and everything, and you're protected from the traffic. So, you know, a lot of the outdoor seating that we have is on the curb. So you got these cars driving right by your meal as you're trying to eat. So, you know, to take that parking lot that's on the other side of, way back when it was Pittsburgh Paint, so it's a pharmacy right now, but you know, to have some sort of U-shaped building structure that you're in.
And where would it be?
This would be in the parking lot right across the street from the train drop-off.
Okay.
And to have that built out for walkable shopping would be, I think, the best use of that land. And then, like I said, the only other problem that I have is that the drive-through takes up a full block when, you know, that could be accomplished another way. You know, to
Like
have-
no drive-in.
Well, or people use more drive-through than walking.
I mean, people get
Yes.
used to walking. I mean, the whole thing is drive-throughs are kind of, if you don't have all many branches, because more and more branches are going into a downtown setting where there is not a drive-through lane.
Okay.
You know, there's the ATM lane, and that's it.
People don't go to.
Yeah, you don't go to a bank.
Yeah, there's less than
Yeah.
one.
It's a lot less, right.
So,
That's just,
you know, St. Charles, so those, I mean, obviously it's mixed use. So you've got residential there, and you've got the retail, and then you've got the structured parking. I mean, it is, you don't have that, you don't have that here.
right.
It's an interesting idea. How does everybody,
I think it's a
how does everybody
phenomenal
react?
idea.
What's that?
I think it's a phenomenal
Yeah.
idea. I hope we have the need for it one day.
Yeah.
And we're inching closer. I mean,
Yeah.
Of course, there's some financial challenges. You know, Geneva did a parking garage in 2012, I believe. It was $30,000 a spot. 30 grand a spot.
Yeah, right. But you are on the train. So transit-oriented development, further develop the downtown, more people living downtown, more people, more restaurants, more retail.
Right.
And like you said, indoor and outdoor space. Because yeah, what you're talking about at St. Charles is a pretty special environment. And by the way, that doesn't even take into account the river. Yes, the river's there.
Right.
But you could go to Zaza's in downtown St. Charles and not even, right, and not walk the riverfront.
Right.
You know, sure people do, but, or maybe that's one of the reasons they go there, but it's, and you're right, you are protected from that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Elmhurst has done it, and
A lot, and that's why I enjoy Tapas actually right now, is because you're away from the traffic. Like, if you're gonna eat at Pasta Mia, you're sitting in the parking lot, while you're trying to have it, you know, and
Right.
there's a few others like that.
Right.
But I just wanna be, you know, where I could just peacefully have my meal without, you know, cars driving by.
yeah, right, right.
I think it's kind of important as you're sketching something, that when you throw in retail, to know the condition of retail today.
Yes,
So you can go into St. Charles and Geneva and anywhere where there was retail, and there's more retail vacancies.
yes,
Than there are new retail
Yes.
businesses open.
Yes.
And so we can talk about restaurants, of course, because everybody eats. But the percentage of people that shop online now rather than walking to go shopping, not exactly an upward trend there.
yeah, correct.
And so you
Correct.
have medical offices, you have professional
Yep.
offices, you have a lot of commercial space going to service-oriented businesses.
Yeah.
But you don't have retail.
We're working with a real estate developer client, and in one community, and it's not in Illinois, but the community is saying that the site needs to have more retail, and the developer's saying, have you seen the numbers in retail? To your point, have you seen the trends? And the community has plenty of retail right now. And so the developers actually wants to do things that are more experiential. So, hotel, bowling alley, those types of things versus straight up retail. So yeah, you're right. It's interesting. That said, if you and the developers would determine, what that, percentage.
But in
would
downtown
be.
Bartlett, for example, if you're talking downtown, you don't have the vehicular traffic
Yeah.
to attract
Right.
investors
Right.
for retail.
Right.
Now, if you're out on 59
Yeah. Right.
or Lake Street and your new redevelopment of Lake Street, different subject.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a lot of real estate in downtown Bartlett that's been for sale for a long time. And so the actual value of that property that has a dance studio in it now, for example, and some of the other major buildings downtown been for sale for a long time, no takers.
Okay. All right.
Property tax.
I mean, it's about 8:15. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and then you guys have any other questions for me or final comments. We'll get you out of here about 8:30. But other communities out there, given that this is going to be a brand campaign, right, crafting and telling your story, are there other communities out there that you guys have seen that are doing a good job that you've noticed? And if so, who is it?
It's all the ones we mentioned. The river communities, river towns.
Mm-hmm.
When we say, what are we gonna go do tonight, it's never, let's go to Streamwood.
It's what?
It's never, let's go to Streamwood or
Yeah.
Carroll Stream or.
Bloomingdale has especially.
Bloomingdale
They
sometimes,
have a lot of
yeah, now they get those
Well,
restaurants
yeah,
coming,
they're
but
getting a lot of
They
restaurants.
do.
it's, yeah, it's something, the one thing that always pops in our head when we go with the other families and stuff to St. Charles or those same towns is we can eat and then do something like that.
Yeah.
And it could be just walk to the next business and have a cocktail or something.
Right. Okay.
Bartlett's starting to get there. So I don't think it won't be there quite yet, or is it there quite yet? But it's getting very close.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Moore and then, well, let's walk across, and my wife loves karaoke. We'll walk across and then we'll tell you, or go to O'Hare's and then go to Boulder and get ice cream, like Robert was saying.
Okay.
You were saying who's doing well, and so in the month of August, I work for a non-for-profit. And so the two restaurants in Geneva said, hey, a portion of our proceeds will go to your nonprofit on Tuesday nights in August. So I've had occasion 3 of the 4 Tuesdays to go to Geneva because we had these fundraisers going on. Well, I'm trying to leave there, and you've got to drive 10 miles an hour because there's so many pedestrians going.
Yeah.
So you have to be like, man, this place is hopping. It's a Tuesday night.
Okay. So any others that come to mind? Any other communities come to mind? Okay. All right, good, that's an opportunity. Okay, and then from your standpoint, whether individually or collectively, what does success look like for this campaign? What is it that we need to do where you guys will go, okay, this works, this worked. It was good that the community invested the money in this.
Well, I would echo or use some of the comments made about not knowing where Bartlett is. And I've heard that for 40 years.
Which is pretty pathetic when it's so close.
But it makes me laugh because when we did the last branding
And so,
campaign, it was never far away.
I would consider it a success.
You came up with that. Yeah.
Hold that, I want to hear this, but I do want to come to that, thank you.
If we invested in signage,
Mhm.
and if we kind of put our foot down and said, and this is my opinion, that the intersection of Route 59 and West Bartlett Road is kind of the place to put an impactful sign that kind of shows Bartlett as a whatever. But I think you have new growth over there. I think you have the retirement community over there. I think the village has planned that corridor. What do you call it? Isn't there?
West Bartlett Road corridor plan.
So there's
Mhm.
planter boxes, there's
Mhm.
street lights on that West Bartlett Road. That's hypothetically the entrance to unique downtown.
Mhm.
But right now, we have a big ugly wall,
Mhm.
and that intersection is the dullest, nothing intersection around.
Yeah, okay, good, good, good. What were you guys talking about? What was the last?
Well, we were joking the last time that EDC did our branding campaign, we were looking at like, what do we have? You know, we've got amazing parks, which we haven't mentioned yet. We have a
Right.
great park district, we have great, amazing parks. And so it was, the whole thing with the gazebo and the town center was coming in, the railroad tracks. And the whole point of people didn't know where Bartlett was, and so we came up with Bartlett Never Far Away. We're like, such an orchestra, people still don't know where we are.
That's right.
Oh, right, so they didn't get ever far away, but where is it?
Yeah.
Is- Okay,
Yeah.
got it, okay, okay.
Somewhere close.
Okay, somewhere.
It's probably part of the small town feel.
Yeah,
Nobody knows where we're at, you know?
Right.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
that's why we feel like Mayberry.
Mhm. Okay. So for others, what would success look like?
Sales tax, I think, obviously more of a presence on social media. I mean, we do have some, but I think, kind of being that go-to kind of place, like the Geneva, and being able to compete with them.
And I think the signage is a good point, which, you can start thinking all different places, but, so, I did, on the rare occasion when I did turn right and I would go down to Army Trail, I never realized that Bartlett was like right there.
Yeah.
There really, along Army Trail, there really isn't, and if there were
Yeah.
some signage there,
Yeah.
I maybe would have known where Bartlett was.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
more signage would make.
Yep, okay.
For me, it's not even, and the metrics are so important, but for me, it's what do people who I run into from out of town say about it? I run into a lot of people from out of town, and maybe they hear a little snippet, or they hear some news on 780 once in a while, or they don't really know. People generally tell me, oh, that's a nice town, but they don't really know much about it. And I'd like to hear more people from when I travel throughout the Chicago metropolitan area, knowing a little bit more, or they've come out here for something. So on an anecdotal basis, that's what I'd like to hear over the next few years.
Yeah.
When I tell people I work for Bartlett, to say, oh yeah, that's where I went to Oktoberfest, that's where I went to More Brewing, that's where I went to whatever restaurant.
Right, okay.
Or event, or whatever the case may be.
One
Okay.
thing that I think we're lacking, and we talk about how, National Night Out has great attendance and everything's getting busier, but I still feel there is a huge disconnect with the residents, because I do so often hear, well, there's nothing in Bartlett. Bartlett never does anything, there's never anything to do. I go, what? Even Mary Vasco, she lived here forever. She said, before she started working for the chamber, she didn't know any of this stuff was going on. And
Yeah.
so I don't
I
know.
do hear that. I think it's either.
There's good
there's a
attendance,
ton
but we have
or-
42,000 people, so when
It's
you
the
consider.
80-20 thing, you've got 20% of the people who are very active and go to a lot of the things that
And
aren't,
the rest of
you'll see them
them-
at the same fest, and then there's, some people who
They
have
really
no
have-
idea that
there's
there's
nothing
anything.
going on.
Well, and with 40,000 people are gonna have different interests, right? I
Right,
mean,
right.
you
It's
know,
also, you have to go to the resources, it's wild, we'll see so many people, it's every single day, we'll go on Facebook and say, well, what is the village doing about this, or is there anything going here? Well, if you come to our Facebook or our website,
Yeah.
you'll see that. You just have to go, they go in the neighborhood Facebook chats and they'll say, well, when is this event? Just come to our
Do a-
website.
just
We have
do a- put a little
480,000
effort.
visitors a year to our website.
Yeah, yeah.
Make it 480,001.
yeah.
And you'll
Yeah.
see we have a calendar on there.
Yeah.
We have a new newsletter that just launched. It comes out every 2 weeks. I mean, everything that we do is, we don't hide anything.
And I didn't mean that.
No,
in a
not at all.
thing, but it's
No,
just
not
like,
at
how
all.
do you shape
No,
these
yeah,
people to?
for sure. No, not at all. I didn't take it that, no. Yeah.
That would be a question, I would say, are there other communities that are doing something other than the community
Right, that's a good question.
to get the word out to the residents? I don't know how else you would do it, but
We have an app now that's very engaging, that does notifications.
how does
every
Carroll
event.
Stream do it? I know they have that big board by the Carroll Stream Town Center.
You know, Bruce, I really don't have anything to do with Carroll Stream since I
Okay.
came to Bartlett.
I was just
Thank
curious if you're
you.
new.
When I go down there, then I was like, oh, that's changed, oh, that's changed, I never go in there.
Okay.
So, Tony, you were saying, people outside recognizing what Bartlett is, where it is, knowing something about it. A couple of you were talking about more in the community, knowing more residents, knowing more about the community, maybe starting changing some might have perception there's nothing to do here. Okay, did I hear that?
Yeah.
They're everywhere now. That isn't special
No,
anymore.
The mangy coyote.
The mangy
There's a
guy.
mangy guy.
And Freddie the Fox.
Yeah.
So I live near Oak Grove Pond, and what my wife and I are noticing is that there's young families again. Because for a while, like after my kids are grown and gone, and the park behind my house was unused, and now it's like, wait a second, there's a lot of new young families in my neighborhood.
Definitely.
So that might be some of this too, is this changeover. In the 90s, this place was booming with children, right? There was no room for the schools, there was no room for the park district programs or anything like that. Those kids grew up, and then, okay, so we went through this lull, right? But I think we're starting to get young families back.
It's good to
here
know, yeah.
again.
100%.
So,
It's good to know.
Yeah,
All of our new sales in my subdivision have been new
yeah, and we see that with the transfer stamps and
Yeah.
transferring the water department, accounts and everything, yeah. There's always some young family in there doing that.
Okay, and so anything else you'd like to see this campaign do? So signage, more talk, better awareness, and a better sense of what Bartlett is outside, and getting more community members, residents aware of things that are good here and things that are happening here. Anything else that comes to mind?
One thought about activities, because back in the day we had Heritage Days and other things in the downtown. Those days now are kind of past because of parking. But to still have activities throughout the town, and the thought came to mind was, and we did it with the Arts in Bartlett one time, was buskers, where you had musicians. So if we had a musician Saturday in Bartlett, where the streets of Bartlett had some musicians, different businesses could have some musicians out on Route 59 or whatever it might be, and kind of have activities throughout the business districts, as opposed to a central activity that really doesn't get the people to the businesses.
So what a way to get both sides of 59 too, right? To, in other words, instead of, to take it where people are, yeah. Now, you said music, could it be spoken, I mean, busking, right? You could get on your soapbox and you could tell a story, or you could try to
Singers,
convince.
dancers, whatever the performance might be, but have Bartlett known for doing that once a month or 3 times a year or whatever it might be.
Fridays or whatever.
Yeah, just as, because
And
they
like-
can't do the essential ones anymore. They don't benefit the business community. I love Oktoberfest and maybe some spillover goes over there.
A lot.
Oh, a
Streets of
lot.
Bartlett, it does a lot.
If they can park there,
And Marion Bright too.
Yeah.
you know,
yeah,
if they can
120
park
is
there.
very well.
But it doesn't do anything for downtown. And so the 4th of July doesn't do anything for downtown. These big events don't do anything for your business communities for the most part, because they're not adjacent
Yeah, I
to
think it
the
depends on what
location.
type of business. For you, for retail, it's not bringing it to the retail, but I think like, you know, you're gonna see cherry on top and the restaurants, they're still gonna get it and everything, but it doesn't drive to the retail establishment, it doesn't get that person.
Well, foot traffic
there.
is foot traffic.
Yeah.
And so sure, you have retail, you have craft shows, if they're in the same proximity of the activity. My thought is to have it broken up,
Yeah,
but organized by someone other than
yeah.
me.
Yeah, just 2 points on those, on festivals and events and driving, traffic. We've started a craft beer festival and an Illinois wine festival. And as much as I love craft beer, it's the wine festival that did drive traffic to retail. Why? Because wine tends to attract women more, husbands come along, and, and so a few glasses of wine in, and then people are going into Banbury Fair and spending all they have, type of thing. So it was fascinating, just learning. In other words, I'm not saying that, I'm not stereotyping, I'm telling you from experience that that's the way it seemed to
One
work.
thing I'd like to see, well, a couple things. One, in terms of events, I mean, we really do have a lot of events, and what our taxpayers sometimes don't understand is the amount of work that
Yeah.
goes on behind the scenes from our police department, our public works department, people like Joey and myself in the administration, and Tony, people, I mean, our planners downstairs. There's so much that goes on to these events that folks just simply aren't aware of. I mean, the amount of money that we have to spend in personnel costs and barricades and things like that. So that's one of the challenges that we have of the village running more events. We're fortunate to have great civic groups. So that's one thing about events that folks might not quite understand because they don't see it. They don't see
Right.
public works.
Sure.
They're kind of hidden
Yep.
in the whole
Yeah.
thing. But one thing I would like to see here in the next few years is I think that the food and drink game, I think we've kind of gotten there. We might be 1 or 2 away, but I think we're there. I'd like to see a little more entertainment, kind of like the bowling alley, whether it's mini golf or a movie theater or something that's not food and beer centric. I think that would be awesome if we could get some sort of entertainment, like whatever the next axe throwing is or the next mini golf, something like that, where it's not so much. And believe me, I love burgers and beers. I mean, that's America, but something a little more entertaining.
Yeah,
that
mhm,
nature.
yeah.
Where it goes, I don't know. We don't have a lot of space left. We're
Right.
starting to get really
I
That
don't
would
think
be the
a
Associated
measure
Bank drive-by.
of success should be on whether how the businesses did in town during an event, because a lot of times it's just bringing people in. So maybe they come
Right.
to Oktoberfest and they didn't go to any of the businesses, but they came to town and they saw,
Right,
and they may be talking about, oh, we need to come back here or whatever.
right.
So I don't think
That's right. They
that
might come
is
back here
a
another
measure
time.
of success by what
Right.
business transpires during that event.
Right, yeah.
Totally agree.
Interesting point, yeah.
Because we're talking about trying to get people to know about Bartlett.
Totally
That
agree.
does it,
Yeah.
whether they do it right at that time. The other thing is that I really feel sorry for the businesses on 59. Because I feel like everything, every discussion, every time, every meeting, it's all about what can we do for the downtown? And boy, they're like the redheaded stepchild.
Okay.
I feel sorry for them.
I'm putting extra lines around 59 businesses. So,
And there's
okay.
a lot of them out there.
Mhm.
I think that music thing, like they used to do at Bannerman's, something like that, you know.
Guys, it's a friggin' brilliant idea. It really is. I mean, we've seen a lot of ideas, seen a lot of things work. To do a distributed event like that, where to your point, you wouldn't, hopefully your infrastructure needs, right? You wouldn't need a lot of public works or traffic. I mean, you'd have to figure out, amplification, for example, and time and stuff, but there's so much talent out there that would love to do that, and you could do so many different types of things in different, you could do it at the golf course, you could do it out at Villa Olivia, you could get the park, you get Pate Phillip Park involved, you can get businesses involved and just distribute it. And then, like you said, people could bounce around, and maybe they walk, maybe they bike, maybe they drive, but
Right.
it would, I mean, talk about putting Bartlett on the map. I don't know anybody's doing it.
We did one, my wife and I went overseas a few years ago. Guinness did a jazz festival in Cork, Ireland, and every single place had jazz
Yeah.
bands.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
we're jazz fans, we just happened to be in Ireland.
Yes.
We thought it was a beer festival.
Yes. Yes.
And it was pretty cool. We were in our
Yeah.
early 30s.
Yeah.
Jazz music was.
Yeah, well, you're doing things that are district, so to your point, like Forest Park for years would do these live, animated sort of theatrical performances in the downtown windows. That was all downtown Forest Park. They do casket races too, because there's more dead people in Forest Park than people are living. But this idea of a busking or a distributed creator music event is really, really intriguing. So. And it would dovetail nicely with, okay, I'm in Bartlett. Okay, I think that's because we just being here and coming through here for so many years. Yeah, it is. You really, it's hard to know when you're in Bartlett, and when you've entered and when you've left. So to put it in those different places would literally help define those spaces, and it would drive business. It would drive business because it wouldn't be big enough to. So
Right.
it's an interesting idea.
And we could do it with the businesses in 59.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's what I know. The mayor talked about that bridging of. Yeah, right. You got your own parking lots at all of these different places. Right. So okay, all right. I'll leave you with that. Any other final questions or comments? Anything you wanted to get out but didn't tonight?
I would just say, as I always remind you folks, please send us your ideas and thoughts. Like, this isn't, we're not adjourning and then that's it. You guys are commissioners and taxpayers and business folks, so please keep the lines of communications open, and if you have any extra thoughts, we'd love to hear.
And if I could tack on a specific request to that, because I'm glad you raised that, is if there's, part of this is going to be a campaign about the place, but clearly sitting with you guys and hearing this, there's going to be stories about people also. So, right, so who are those people who have maybe lived here and have a special story to tell? They don't have to be, right, presidents of companies or the president of the chamber board, but they could be the local barber who's coaches football, baseball, wrestling, right?
There he is.
You're a story right there. Right, yeah. So, right? Clearly, what you and your wife have built, right? But there's people, right? So in the community, and I'd love to start hearing those from you guys. Like, if we were to write about, or if we were to ask them to tell their story, right? I mean, your story is interesting. All of your stories are interesting. Your story especially, even though you don't live in Carroll Stream, like you're 10 minutes from, and now you won't look back, right? So you guys all have stories. We need to learn about who else has those stories. And it would be helpful if and I think that's going to be part of that, right? And then we can, by the way, we don't have to start with criteria, but eventually we go, okay, how many do we have west of 59? How many do we have east of 59? How many do we have downtown? How many do we have from that are young, right, and have new kids, people who live in apartments, people who are aging in place or downsizing, and then we start to build out that list and create a framework, and we have them. We don't know the words yet. We're gonna do a lot of listening to people yet. But this idea of this small town feel, right? We got to find the right way to convey that. And I think a big part of that will be through the words, voices, eyes of those people. And we could do simple stuff. We could do iPhone, photos, right? We don't have to spend a ton of money on professional photographers. As much as I like spending money on professional photographers, but we don't, because that gives it that sort of small town quality. So, so please do think of that, and if we could, maybe we could just even send an email to ask these guys to just throw it in. Doesn't have to be perfect. We don't have to make contact with them yet, but who is it and why?
One other little caveat, it's encouraging for me, and I know for everyone, I think, I speak for everyone, to have leadership in our community.
Yeah.
From the staff level and from the village board level, that now try to figure out a way to get things done, as opposed to years past, when, I'm talking several years past, not recent past, that there was a lot of reasons to not do things. That's not the way they act. They're acting now.
Good. What's that?
They're doers.
Okay.
We have doers here now. And that's really encouraging.
I like that.
Bartlett does it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Close.
I like that.
Pretty close.
Right. I like that.
Bartlett Pears,
Doers.
I couldn't help it.
What's that?
Bartlett Pears. Bartlett Pears.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Didn't we joke about that? The Bartlett Pears?
That's what the branding was when I
Oh, yeah,
started.
somebody, right,
Yeah.
somebody.
We joke around it, but it actually existed.
Yeah, it exists.
It was
It was an
bad.
attractive pair, though.
No.
Yeah, it's nice.
All right. Hey, thank you guys. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
thanks for sharing tonight, Dave. We really appreciate hearing from you. Do you have to adjourn us, Jerry? Do you have to
Oh,
adjourn
yeah.
us?
Is it really?
Yeah.
Do I have what?
Do we have to adjourn the meeting?
Not yet, we have.
Oh, you have other?
We have to discuss the Bartlett Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're having it,
Man.
it's in the park, it's at
And-
Leisburg, if we could put up some of the ads, that would be great for us.
Anybody that posts would be willing to.
Of course. So when people are saying, what are you doing for parking with the construction, and what we tell people?
There will be a bus, we're using Hanover Town bus like we did last year. There's also all of the free metro parking, we'll also reach out to the banks and see if we can get
That's
their
on
lots
their
as well.
side.
People will figure out the parking.
Okay.
For John.
So there's no buses from downtown?
Oh, yeah, fill it out.
No, it'll probably be, I think, at the Parks District, most likely like where it was last year. Because we can't do the buses from Metro lots because it's against Metro's policy. So the buses cannot run from downtown. Yeah. Yeah, you're already close enough.
Depends on how old you are, brother.
And you can get dropped off,
Yeah.
and Uber.
Ubers, we're really encouraging
You
Uber and
young
stuff.
people go, oh, it's
Yeah.
a short walk.
And I want to say thank you to Mike for being a friend of the fest,
bike.
for our new sponsorship is the
But
friend of the
you
fest,
should hear my
so
customers.
thank you,
Yeah.
Mike. So, yeah, if you'll get the word out, put the posters, and we are doing a social media campaign right now where it's find the pretzels around town, there's one right here in Village Hall. So if people find 10 of the 24 and send their thing, and they win a $50 gift card, so.
Yeah.
Take a picture with the pretzels.
Buzz.
Yeah. You know what, it slowed down
Kids
though.
come in, they're like, there's a pretzel.
Yeah. Well, wait till next year, we're gonna totally do something different. We're gonna do street signs. We're gonna encourage businesses to buy. We haven't talked about it yet.
May I see it?
We are going to do that next year.
Show it again.
I love those ideas like
Yeah.
Chicago did with the
Cows,
cows. and-
yeah.
That was fun.
They
We're gonna have
built in
pretzels
one
on
similar
Nice.
statues, they're all the same statues, but they're painted different.
Yeah.
Different businesses and stuff.
Well, and that's similar to the, I mean, that is, your busking idea is a live version of that, but yes, you could, distribute those around the village.
did
Or
that
this, the
many years
community.
ago with the reindeer. Were
We
you
did it
there
with
for the
snowmen,
reindeer?
too, reindeer, we did it with snowmen.
One thing that
Yeah.
always trips me up is
The fire hydrants are
village.
cool, that was a really good, I
Part of
like
a
those
village or
fire
a city,
hydrants.
like,
I did one of them.
Did you, what'd you do?
like,
Vicki?
Rolling Meadows is a city.
And you did
Oh,
a beautiful
uh,
job.
It's 24,000 people, this is 42,000 people.
Tony,
It's
you have
village,
any
right?
new business?
I live near.
No, just somebody mentioned
Right, right,
signage.
Byron, right.
We're actually going to be taking a look at the sign ordinance at our next month EDC.
Yeah?
And,
Looking at it, from what perspective?
from you all reviewing it, from your economic development and business experience and expertise, and picking out aspects of it that you like, some things that you think are too lenient, some things that are too stringent.
And that'll be a big
And
project. for
it's
you
gonna be a
guys.
big project. Yeah, we're taking a hard look at the sign
Great,
ordinance.
great.
And the village board last meeting referred it to the
Is
EDC
this
for
about like
review.
the Windows thing?
Windows is part
I
of
had
it.
somebody call me about this.
Windows, exterior
They're
signage.
like, could you help me? with
Temporary
this?
banners,
Go to the village
everything.
hall.
You're gonna look at the sign ordinance
Wow.
next month.
Gaming flags.
The gaming
That's
flags.
gonna be a
Bring your
topic, too.
opinions and thoughts on the gaming
Yeah.
flags.
That's a big step.
Okay, would anybody like to suggest adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Everybody's in favor, I know.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Consider us adjourned.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just
All
one
right.
request is to take some pizza. We have a few
Thank you
pieces
too,
left.
Bruce, for the little ornaments.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for the ornament,
Yeah.
Bruce.
Thanks,
Our
guys.
pleasure.
John, great job, man.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Good job, John.
Coming in and leading
Thanks,
the
Bruce.
meeting.